Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of whatever
A
the fuck
special
we end up calling
episode of
this.
Jen and Jake's Bizarre Affray, where we cannot even do a normal best of the year video without arbitrarily making it into some kind of zero-sum game.
So, this year, we are going to do something different than we've ever done before. In conjunction with our end of the year video, I'm not sure which of these is going to go up first. It'll probably be this, but we are going to talk about our favorite albums of the year. Jen and I are talking about our favorite albums of the year, but we are doing a head-to-head competition to see what the Jams and Tea channel, the album of the year 2025, collectively will be. So we are going to do a competition. We're gonna do a draft pick of albums that the both of us have listened to, that both of us love. They're all gonna go head to head, and we are going to do a rhetorical argument with one another based on which one we want to win, which one we think deserves to win, and we will advance the winner to the next round. Important detail is that each of us have vetoes, which are basically manual victory overrides. Each one of us gets one per round, except for in the finals and semifinals, which there will not be because that will be basically too few participants, I think, to be able to institute that rule. It'll be a little bit of a zero-sum game from that perspective. So basically, we are combining normally when we do the yearly quiz video and the end of the year list, and we're smashing them together into this inelegant monstrosity. So first up, we are going to do a draft pick from a collective list of records that we both have decided on and that we are both very enthusiastic about and ready to defend, but we are going to draft pick between the two of us. And in order to determine who is first, we are going to flip a coin on the internet. Bitch. All right, Jen, heads or tails?
Heads.
Oh, what the fuck?
So you flip two coins.
I flipped two. Oh, okay. I didn't even read this. I just kind of did it. Okay, select a coin type.
Coin type.
What in the fuck is this nonsense? What the fuck? Okay, I'll just find the U.S. quarter in here, I guess. Buffalo nickel. I don't care. Fuck it. Now, Jen. Let's try this again. Heads or tails?
Heads.
It's heads. Jen
Okay.
gets the first pick of the list. Now, this is going to be semi-strategic because if we look at this, these draft picks are more or less going to determine what we are going to be dealing with. So, like, this is, in many respects, the most essential part of this competition. So, Jen, what do you think is your first of the draft picks?
I want to start with the record that started this show. I'm drafting Revenge Seekers, baby.
Ooh, okay. Jen gets. Okay. Which means, since you didn't pick it first, I have to. It's gotta be Magic Alive by McKinley Dixon. Number 2.
Let's go with Rosalia. Let's go with Lux.
Ooh, that's a good one. Which means my pick, I feel good about this, the BPM, Sudan Archives. Jen is up.
I'm gonna pick God Does Like Ugly.
Which means my number 3 will be... This is already tough. Goddamn. Shucks, bro. I'm gonna do a reliable pick here. Let God sort them out. Clips. All right, number 4 for Jen.
Let me take Snipe Hunter, Tommy Childers.
Which means I am taking only Dust Remains Backwash. Shout out Backwash, friend of the channel. Next.
Next, let me have I Love My Computer.
I Love My Computer, Nina Girachi. My number 5 is going to be Stardust.
Ooh.
Danny Brown. All right, next up.
Oh, that's difficult. That's tough. That's tough. Let's go with I want Sabrina Carpenter. I want man's best friend.
And for me, yeah, I'm giving it up to the Quadster. Vanisher. Horizon Scraper. All right, number 7.
All right. I'm surprised it's taken us this long to get here. So let me explain what's going on with the Ethel Cain. So Jake and I arrived at an impasse where we wanted to include as many different artists on this as possible, but we reasoned that we have significantly different enough feelings about Perverts and Willoughby Tucker that I'm going to pick Ethel Cain, and so we are going to talk about Perverts. If Jake had chosen Ethel Cain, we would have talked about Willoughby Tucker. I will always love you.
And that means Jen gets Ethel Cain. Which means lonely people with power, death, heaven.
I'll have Dijon, baby.
Did you know he's in One Battle After Another?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Dijon is in One Battle After Another. I was like, holy shit, look at that! Let's see. I will pick the best voice in pop music, Ego Death at a bachelorette party. Oh, wait, I didn't include the namesake. How dare I? Haley.
Yo-Yo Williams.
Yelia Williams. All right, final 4, March Madness.
I'll take the Billy Woods.
I'll go Live, Laugh, Love. Earl Sweatshirt. And then finally,
I'm gonna stand by my man, Gais Guevara.
Then last is Little Sims.
Yeah, that leaves Little Sims.
Okay. We're so back, chat. First matchup. Oh, this sucks.
I hate to do this.
Sucks.
I hate to do it, but like I know what my answer is.
I know it. Okay, here's the argument that I will present forward. That I think McKinley should take this because the Billy Woods album is incredible. I don't think it's his best this decade thus far, and I would argue that it's maybe not even top 3, despite how great it is. McKinley has a lot less records, but I think that you could way more in good faith argue that Magic Alive is his best album. You could. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think you could make that argument.
For me, Magic Alive exemplifies this really forward trajectory that McKinley has had as an artist, whereas with this particular Billy Woods album, it's great. Don't get me wrong, it's wonderful, but it's not my favorite of his records from the decade. And so I'm happier to give this one to McKinley.
All right. It's McKinley. Ba-boom. That means that Jake gets a W. Okay, next up, Gais Guevara versus Quadeca. These are like the 2 most unique artists on this entire list.
Yeah, and I put this one in when we initially made our list of albums that we were going to have compete. I put this one in over Gais's other album from this year, Goyard Ibn Said, just because I think this one is more fervent of a project, right? It's this really hyperactive mixtape type of feel, and with a year of big, great, bombastic rap albums, having something that airs more on the mixtape side of things be in the mix here felt appropriate for me. And funnily enough, it's up against a big, bombastic album like Vanisher, Horizon Scraper. So how do we settle this?
I know I'm definitely leaning more towards Quad because he's really at the tippy top of my list. But the thing is that I am perfectly content with either of them winning this round just because of what they kind of stand for. People who like genuinely work outside the music industry system and just kind of do their thing.
Yeah, they both have that kind of independent spirit that we love to see and that we love talking about. And it reflects in their music, right? They're making stuff that nobody else is making, both of these guys.
All right.
I think I am even ready to give it to Quatica, though, honestly.
Okay,
I'm ready to give this one to Quatica.
From a uniqueness and from a concept point of view, I do give Vanisher the leg up.
Yeah, so, there's no album out there this year like Vanisher, so I'm willing to see that one through a little bit more.
W for that. Ethel Cain and Earl Sweatshirt.
Two albums that gave me very opposite feelings this year.
One of them definitely makes you feel a little bit better, and one of them makes you feel a whole lot worse.
Okay, so Perverts was my pick, and I think I have to stick my neck out for the weirdos among us in the Ethel Cain fan base who are really, really messing with this one. Because this came out early this year, and so that's given it a kind of an underdog spirit for me in terms of this competition. Because not only is it one that has been overlooked all year, it's still pretty high on my individual list. So I'm gonna fight hard for this as being like, yes, I love rooting for this really challenging material that comes at a really interesting time for Ethel's career that honestly, its reputation in her discography is going to be a little bit dampened by the respective release of Willoughby Tucker. So I'm happy to ride for this as like the dark horse pick of the whole year for me.
I completely see where you're coming from. And as someone who is an enormous Earl Sweatshirt fan and somebody who thinks that Live, Laugh, Love is, it's either this or I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside, which is his second best album. But the fact that it even contends is impressive in the first place. And I found this album really refreshing and really cool. And just generally, it's exactly kind of what I want from Earl at his stage in his career. But funnily enough, going up against Perverts, I think that I would lobby for Earl Sweatshirt to win against Willoughby Tucker, which is the album I like a little bit more than Perverts. But ironically, I do think I'm going to have to give it to Perverts just for what it stands for. It's more challenging. It's more out there. I like the risks that it takes. And yeah, I mean, like, it is something that ideally artists would use the sort of in-between space between more major statements to do weirder fringe shit. So I'm happy to hand this to Miss Ethel Cain. This is a great opportunity to celebrate a weird fucking album. And that means that next up here...
Ooh!
We got two really adventurous, kind of alternative albums here.
Oof. Okay, where to start? I mean, I'll put the leg in for Dijon since that was my pick. We didn't review either of these albums in full, so let's give a little bit of a micro review.
Yeah, why not?
Baby, to me, by Dijon, I said it before, I'll say it again, I said it in the episode, but it really is comparable to JPEG Mafia's Veteran in terms of what if you had a guy who was really into the idea of bringing electronics intertwined with this kind of older style of music. For JPEG Mafia, obviously it's hip-hop, but for Dijon, it's R&B and singer-songwriter music, which creates this really nice juxtaposition of warm vocals and really cold, sharp instrumentals in a lot of places. It makes for a really interesting listening experience. Oh, but man, this Backwash album is really good.
That's the thing, is that before, like, Backwash, we have celebrated the music of Backwash since the literal inception of this show when, I mean, she even watched our video on us twice, and ever since then, she's done nothing but put out insane quality release one after the other. I don't think I've given a single Backwash project lower than an 8. And honestly, this is in contention with her record before this one. It has a really long title that I can never remember, but that one was what I would consider her best before. That really is more so from a production level. From a writing standpoint, I actually do think I have to give the edge to Only Dust Remains. So I'm not sure what I would come down as being her best record, but for as much as I really fucking love the colliding aesthetics that shouldn't work but end up still working for Dijon on Baby. It's a really ambitious, cool sort of idea. I am going to plant my flag to remain on Team Backwash here just because it is such an advanced statement. It's such a definitive moment, and I feel like she's never really sounded better performance-wise. She's hungry on this album. Yeah. It's fucking... This was my album of the year for a considerable amount of time until one or two records came along to kind of dethrone it, but this was the early year mainstay along with Death Heaven. So I do love both, and I love what both represent, but I'm gonna lobby for Backwash.
I think I'm with you. I think I lean more toward Backwash myself between these two.
So the first round here is finished, and neither of us used a veto. Look at how amicable we're being. Look at how nice. All right,
let's start at the top. Shit.
No matter who wins, we lose.
Yeah, it's already getting to that point where I'm just like, oh god, which one of these am I gonna have to cut? So Snipe Hunter is my country album of the year.
As is mine.
It's difficult to say how to even put this up against McKinley-Dixon, just because Snipe Hunter for me is hopefully going to be a peak for Tyler Childers' career, both, you know, from my own enjoyment of it. This is my favorite of a couple of his most recent projects. It's my favorite thing that he's made easily since Country Squire. And then, but McKinley...
And that's the thing. I kind of think both of these albums represent
these guys have a lot of similar appeal with these projects in particular, right?
Well, and not to mention, I feel like both of them are at the same place where it's like these are the albums that are kind of the current commercial and critical zenith for both. It really does kind of feel like everyone united around these releases. And I mean, like, Tyler is a lot bigger of an artist than McKinley has been, but I would say that I've heard more people talk about these albums from these artists than I have for any of their projects in the past. So...
What makes these interesting, especially with McKinley very much in the jazz rap direction, is I think a quality that I have to hand to Snipe Hunter is that it is a little bit more larger range in sound quality and in its dynamics that it plays with. That, to me, gives it a track-to-track appeal that Magic Alive has, don't get me wrong, but to me, I see Magic Alive as more the grand scope and the grand narrative, whereas Snipe Hunter,
holistic portrait.
There are songs,
I don't listen to
there are songs on Snipe Hunter that I would more readily pick out and just be like, yeah, this is like my favorite country song of the year. In Magic Alive, I see much more as like the individual, the whole being a lot more than the sum of its parts in a few places.
For as much as I want to see McKinley take the gold because I was unable to represent him when For My Mama came out because I got to that album a little too late, and this is an album I think that is of comparable quality. The thing is that I do think that that's something that For My Mama, like, I think these albums are both basically perfect, but For My Mama has the versatility of being an incredibly cohesive interlocking statement, but also has a bunch of songs on it that I do listen to in isolation, irrespective of the album experience. Magic Alive is something that, like, you know, even like the most single ready song on here, which I think would probably be Run 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 Part 2. Again, that's it, the Part 2. It feels like it is so linked to the greater experience that I definitely like Magic Alive more, but I like the spirit of Snipe Hunter taking this.
I think I do too. I do too. It feels rough to have to do that to Magic Alive, which is my album of the year. Like, when I put it out in the individual level, like, this is it.
We'll do
for both of us, and that's kind of why we wanted to do this video this way.
Yeah, like, we'll do a quick read through of our respective top 10s at the end of this, just to give you a good idea. But this is both of our album of the year, but the way that we make this interesting is by not going the expected route. And I feel like the way to go here is for Snipe Hunter. McKinley can take this victory in spirit, since we're both obviously co-signing it as being like, this is album of the year shit, guys. So that goes to Tyler. So let's give Jen the dub. Next it is Nina Girac. Oh, fuck!
All right.
Fuck!
I mean...
This sucks, man!
I I had a deep emotional journey with I Love My Computer a few times this year.
That's the thing.
That's what I want to say is that
I had a really deep emotional journey with both of these, if I'm being honest with you.
I had an emotional journey with I Love My Computer this year, where it became the sound of a very downbeat moment for a little while there for me. And the BPM, ironically, came around in time to give me something new in that same kind of genre space that completely pulls me out of the muck whenever that I hear it. But
oh yeah,
I Love My Computer has kind of defined the second half of this year for me, just in terms of how many experiences I have associated with it now, just because no matter how I felt, I couldn't stop listening to it.
I would also like to lobby, just, we're not doing a songs list or anything, but iPod Touch from I Love My Computer is like top 3 of the year songs. Like I like, that is everything great about modern EDM, kind of throwing it back, but also it's dance music that tells a story. Like, this is an album that I compare heavily to something like Porter Robinson's Nurture, not just because it's in the lineage of modern EDM, but because I Love My Computer is an album that is about the joy of creation, just like Porter Robinson's Nurture. And iPod Touch is this really sweet song about reminiscing what it was like to grow up like with an MP3 and how that informed your youth. That really gets to me as somebody who grew up at the same time as Nina, but at the same time, the BPM was also a record where every time I listened to it, I was just like, this never feels like it's stopping giving me stuff. This is an album that does nothing but give and give and give. I actually raised my rating of it since we reviewed it even higher. It's top 3 of the year for me as well. And both of them are kind of in the same genre space, which means this is actually a really solid comparison. I think if I was going to make an argument for one over the other, I'm lending it to the BPM because it's so forward-looking. I Love My Computer is fantastic, but it is squarely rooted in the traditions of kind of classic EDM. Like, this is super Daft Punk, super Discovery, super, you know, you can call back to a lot of less flattering 2010s comparisons, but that Nina frankly steamrolls on this album. But I think I have to go with my pick just because of how much it grew on me, kind of what it represents, and just the colossal statement that this album ends up being. This is my dance album of the decade right now, and I still feel like, for as great as I Love My Computer is, it does have, like, I think there's room to grow.
Yeah, I think I'm fully with you. I mean, the way that the Sedan Archives bring in this mesh of genre and time period by infusing so much of this EDM with house and disco and 2010s, you know, downbeat trap stuff. It's a very forward-looking album by putting all those aesthetics together and saying, like, no, we can make something extremely cohesive and extremely fun out of all this stuff that we love and just kind of putting it all together. And it is higher on my list than Nina Girachi. So I think I do have to hit it to the BPM.
It's one of the worst instances of, you know, why are we making two beautiful girls fight? I'm not just saying that because I have an intense crush on both of these artists. But, all right, Sedan Archives, we'll take that one. Dub. Ba-boom. We got Man's Best Friends by Sabrina Carpenter. Thanks for the character limit there. And Let God Sort 'Em Out. Wow, these are probably the 2 most popular albums on this list.
Yeah, probably. These are probably the 2. Yeah, these have to be the 2 most popular albums that we're going to talk about.
And both of them are worlds apart in terms of what they represent, because I would argue that Man's Best Friend is the classic, the OK Computer to Kid A pipeline, where you're coming off the back of the big crowd pleaser that everybody loved, and you're making something that's a bit of a left turn. You're making something that is going to throw people off, and, you know, maybe in the moment people respond to it less hotly, but it'll probably be looked on more fondly with time. Clips, on the other hand, this is a reminder of the hip-hop establishment at its peak. This is 2 guys who have been in the industry coming back together for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to deliver one of their most, if not their most, well-groomed statements made for everybody that has built up, like, you know, following Pusha T, fans of Clips and all of that. So you've got one huge, critical, darling, big, enormous industry success, and the weird, out there, riskier record. So I'm really at a kind of standstill with both of these.
I want to talk about Sabrina for a second, which is that Sabrina, this album grew on me, which is surprising to say because I already liked it quite a bit when it first came out. I listened to it on a road trip the weekend that it came out. We went to Chicago.
And I do like it better than Short and Sweet.
Yeah, I've had this album on for a few months. I've been listening to Short and Sweet back to back with it, and I'm like, you know, Short and Sweet, yeah, maybe it has the better, like, singles spread, but Man's Best Friend is my preferred record because the lyrics are a bit more brazen in, like, an actually challenging way, and not just in a, like, oh, I'm Sabrina and I'm horny kind of way. Like, there are song conceits and moments on this that make me genuinely wonder about the psyche of Sabrina Carpenter.
Like, the album
in a way that
cover
makes for a much more interesting portrait of somebody at the peak of their success, right? Because this is, we said this about Big Thief as well, but this is kind of an album that you make while you're touring, but it just still has this glisten on it of, like, they very clearly took their time and worked out every little bit of, like, okay, I want this song to sound like this, I want this song to be like this, but I'm more surprised by the turns that Man's Best Friend takes, and I think that's a big appeal that this album has, is that it's often very surprising if you're going in blind into how it can kind of move and pivot between different kinds of dynamics and genre influences. And so it's the more interesting pop album of the year for me than basically anything else put out by anybody at Sabrina's level. And you said everything that I needed to say about Clips, which is like, yeah, it's the establishment with a bit of a bonus of some, you know, younger blood coming in there to spice things up a bit with features from guys like Tyler and Conway the Machine. And I just have to lean on what Professor Sky said about GNX in comparison to this album, which is that, yes, Clips, really, really, really solid stuff, really, really great album, but GNX is what's gonna push the form. And I think I can make an argument a little bit more in Man's Best Friend's favor that it's an album that's gonna push the form for its space.
And if I can cite the other sort of music YouTube channel that we constantly go to and cite other than Professor Sky, shout out, we love Professor Sky here, I also think I agree with people like FD Signifier. The fact that Let God Sort Him Out, Pusha T and Malice reuniting is not something that I ever would have had on any bingo card ever. It just didn't seem like a thing that would ever happen. And them making an album this good, also something I just absolutely would never have called, because most hip-hop reunion albums have been disappointing or just straight up, like, bad or mediocre. And I like, there are risks that are taken on Let God Sort 'Em Out. There are no more emotional Clips songs than the opener on this album. I don't think that they've made a song that evocative as long as they've been making music, and that includes Pusha T's solo stuff, which is also fantastic. So, like, I get it, but I also agree with the sentiment that this being the big winner for this year is not exactly super great, that we're leaning on these old head guys to sort of, like, reinforce already established ideas. Like, if Let God Sort Him Out was made by a 25-year-old who is just now coming onto the scene, I would be pushing this so much harder. But I do kind of think that if you're talking about what is challenging the establishment more, I don't think that Clips can quite claim that.
Yeah. But
we're gonna get the hip hop head so angry. Like, for the record, I think Let God Sort Him Out is a better record, but spiritually speaking, I like the gusto of Sabrina more.
I think that, yeah, this bracket is not about what is the best. I think it's becoming
none of these are. None of these matchups are.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's give it to Sabrina.
But yeah, let's do it.
Jen gets a dub. We are at Ooh. Okay. Interesting.
I mean, yeah.
New picks of mine.
So, with Sims, I love Lotus. I love it a lot.
It's a great album. It really is.
This is going to sound really strange. It's the least immediately captivated I have been by a Little Sims project.
Yeah, this was a bit of a grower.
Since Simbi, right? Mm-hmm. It's been a bit of a grower on me. And Quatica, to me, had that instant appeal of like, oh, something different. Something strange is happening here. I want to feel this out. Now, don't get me wrong, Lotus is a great record, but it's also frankly the exact kind of record that I expected Little Sims to make at this juncture.
100%.
With what we knew about just from the music itself and what we also knew about the difficulties that she had getting back in the studio in the first place and touring and all that. I kind of knew the direction that Lotus was going to go, in that more like it's a little bit angry, it's a little bit hungry, and it's also very reflective on those feelings and how Sims can project that outward and what she can reflect on inward. It is a very good record, a very interesting record, but I was just so surprised by Quatica. I was elated that something like this could even possibly exist and like give me this much joy and deep thought.
Every time I go back to Vanisher, which has been a good many times throughout the year, there's like parts of it where I'm like, whoa, I don't remember this happening. It's such a dense sonic experience that it's difficult to compare to like literally anything. Even Quatica's other stuff is so distinctly not like his last project, Scrapyard, is like there's more lo-fi and kind of indie stuff that's wrapped up in that record. This, on the other hand, is a cohesive statement, but it has like a larger sonic palette. And I feel like that is what makes it the most impressive and just overall best album that he's put out yet, whereas this is another instance of like, I don't think that this is quite on the level of Simbi, for instance, but at the same time, I love her writing. I think it's super, she is one of the best voices in hip-hop right now. She has one of the best pens of anybody, like potentially even top 3 if you're talking about modern rappers. But I think I gotta go with Vanisher just because of the uniqueness of the experience.
Yeah, I'm going with Vanisher.
Since that was 2 of mine, there will not be, we will only award W's when there are head-to-heads of us. So next up we have Perverts and God Does Like Ugly. Right. Wow, this came for you. This came for your ass, man.
2 of mine and 2 of my very high seeds in this draft. Let me think on this for a second.
2 albums that I, broadly speaking, like about the same, even though I would say that this is another instance of 2 incredibly diametrically opposed albums in terms of what they mean for their respective artists, in that this is an obvious left took, fucking Peregrine took. This is a left hook, a southpaw hit for Ethel, whereas Jid, it's him very much doing Simbi. It is him, or not Simbi, Lotus. And this is a great Jid album that he delivered on every level I wanted him to deliver, but not necessarily. I will say that in the structure of God Does Like Ugly, there is some adventurousness. I love how he's leaning more on using his singing voice. That being said, I don't think it's that much of an advancement from the previous record, even though I would put them on similar quality levels. I think that that one takes more risks and is just holistically a more interesting record. But at the same time, Perverts, it's such a strange, wiry experience that it is like really engaging and it is really different. But I guess I would say that it is inherently less consistent, but I don't know if that makes it worse. These are albums I feel like the same amount of affinity for.
Oof, okay. So where Perverts is likely going to be an anomaly for Ethel's discography, God Does Like Ugly feels like the continued refining trajectory that Jid has been on with the Forever Story. Even though it is a left turn in a lot of ways, that to me still rings true for everything that Jid has put into his music thus far. The desire and the execution of that desire to do something different, to do something that frankly got him in trouble with the establishment. This ended up becoming a very anti-establishment hip-hop record because of how much trouble he was getting in with his label over some of this stuff.
Man, fuck Dreamville. They got my mans. We gotta save him.
We have to save him. But I think God Does Like Ugly is another sign of this path that Jid has been on toward greatness that has already brought us a lot of great music and a lot of great work. And I think I'm leaning more toward Jid for this particular feud, though, just because I'm more interested in seeing what this project will mean in the larger context of Jid's career and Jid's body of work. Whereas I think we're only going to be surprised and completely had the rug pulled out from under us if Ethel makes anything like Perverts ever again. And frankly, I don't think it will be as interesting if she does.
That is a great point. And honestly, I think we can also sort of award Ethel at least kind of a spiritual victory here for having an amazing 2025. I mean, like, no matter how you slice it, the records she released at the start and end of the year, I mean, the fact that they're both easily in the upper echelons of albums I've listened to this year is a testament to how much of a fucking golden streak she is on. But because I am so at an impasse here, I'm handing the tiebreaker to you, so we're gonna hand it to Jid.
All right, let's hand it to Jid.
Okay. And that means that the next one up is... Oh, no! Oh, no!
Both albums that mean a lot to us, not just in our like enjoyment of the music, but in terms of what they represent for the people that they're coming from, right? Ironically,
two most similar albums on this list, I would say.
Yeah, ironically, both of these albums represent kind of giving yourself to dance music and your artistry as a way to like come back from some kind of negative experience. Jane is talking about the whole time feeling a little bit disillusioned and wanting to have a change, and Danny is reflecting on all the changes that he's made that he worked out on his previous record Kuranta, and the kind of elder statesman wisdom that he can now bring by completely shifting in his sound to the project like Stardust. And like I said, he doesn't say this on the album, but I just find it so admirable that he committed to making this project as a way to kind of get over some old anxieties that he was having about feeling like, to use the topic from one of the songs, a copycat, because he told the story to Billboard where after seeing the work that Sophie did on Big Fish Theory, he said, I want to work with her, I want to work with her, I want to work with her, this could be really good, but then kind of talked himself out of it as it would be a bad idea because somebody's already done it, and I don't want to be like chasing, Vince or anybody else's tail on this. And he ended up going about it kind of the best way that he could have, if that was the conflict that he was having in his mind, of working with a bunch of people who are kind of directly or indirectly making careers and making music based off the success of Sophie, right? A lot of these artists would not exist and have the acclaim that they do without Sophie's bringing EDM into a new generation of, online queers.
Yep.
And that's the people that Danny went to make a record.
Including Jane Remover.
Yeah, including Jane Remover.
So, like, here's the thing, is that my pick, or my draft pick here is Danny. I think that the Jane Remover album is better, but on a spiritual level, it has to do with the narrative of Danny as an artist, really. I think that makes Stardust such a genuinely kind of inspiring record. And I mean, in a lot of respects, Revenge Seekers is too. It's a little bit more internal, but I feel like Stardust represents such a realm of possibilities that it's already in dialogue with Revenge Seekers and is kind of using that template to try and push himself forward. There's a bit of friction here that I can't quite resolve, but I do think I'm gonna lobby for Danny to take this, just because he's got the story. This is such a risk. It's such a, like, again, it's a culmination of, I think, the two best prevailing popular genre trends of alternative music this year, that being EDM and hip-hop. And again, Revenge Seekers does all of these things well too, and in a more probably cohesive and coherent way.
I would certainly argue that.
I like the riskiness of Stardust. So, where are you leaning right now?
I don't know. This is difficult for me. Objection! I think I'm gonna veto this for Jane.
All right,
I'm gonna commit.
Takes it.
I'm gonna commit.
That's a good one. Let's give Jen another dub. All right, and next up we have
Rosalia Ego Death. So what we have here is possibly the most grandiose art pop album of the year, with all kinds of bombastic songs and expressions of love and faith and desire. And then you have the meanest pop record that I've heard all year, Ego Death at the Bachelorette Party. This album is angry and desperate and upset and unresolved in a lot of ways. Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party is a very tense experience, even in its softer moments, because in its moving between, you know, levels of sound and levels of intensity, you're really seeing the post-divorce whirlwind that the album was conceived in, fully realized in its sequencing and in its dynamism. And in that way, it's a very good concept record. Oh, but you're not gonna hear anything like Lux this year.
That's the fucking thing. This is two artists I possess an insane amount of affinity for. As in, like, this is the Hayley Williams solo album where I finally think she has moved to the level where this is as good, if not better, than the vast majority of great Paramore albums, which I also love. This is the first statement from her solo stuff where I'm just like, oh wow, like this is an album that sounds incredible. She sounds incredible on it, and it's in many ways, it's a lot of interesting sonic left hooks. But man, Rosalia, like, and that's another thing. These are like literally my two favorite vocalists in modern pop music. Like, both of these women are performing like their very lives are on the line on this fucking record. But Rosalia, it's ambitious, it's colossal, it's strange. I've never heard anything like it, and it's featured with so many interesting collaborators. Yeah, I don't know. I think I gotta give this to Rosalia.
The thing about Lux is that this is an album, a really ambitious record that feels
really
like it has something that it's really trying to prove. Whereas Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party is kind of resting on the laurels of its concept a teeny tiny bit, where, you know, some songs are allowed to be a lot more straightforward and a lot less challenging to the genre space that it exists in, and the lyrics and the vocals are what really allow it to give it that particular time and place and that tension that's so important to that album. But every facet of the sonic arrangement of Lux makes it this really unique and really grand vision for me. Not just Rosalia's performances, which are incredible, but the mix of languages and instrumental spaces, and again, the features on this album, where they are,
crazy,
always really shake up this big grand story of, you know, reckoning. Blah. Sorry, that whole thing was completely cut off my sentence. Ad block blocked my train of thought.
No, but
27
like
trains of thought blocked by ad block today.
But like, I completely understand where you're coming from. Like, this is again a classic case of solid, sturdy, reliably good album in a lot of traditional ways, and the weird left hook album. And we tend to prefer weird left hook albums, but I also think that there's just a lot of traditional pop sensibilities that do work in Rosalia's benefit on here, because this is such a more considered, thoughtful, and the scope of its sonic qualities, as crazy as this sounds, is way more narrow than it was on Motomami, which is like an album where every single song could feasibly be from a different record. There's so much unity on Lux, and even then, the unity, in that unity, there's so much diversity. So I do think that Rosalia should take this.
I think so too.
All right, another dub for Jen, and now we have the final
last one of this round. Only Dust Remains and Lonely People with Power.
These are like right next to each other in my ranking too. Shit. Okay, Death Heaven. On the one hand, I think that it's not just my opinion, but basically the opinion of everybody else, that this is their best album since Sunbather, and really the only album that they've made since Sunbather that could potentially usurp their #1 spot. And I don't say that to denigrate other Death Heaven albums. We have been eternal champions of the weirder entries in this discography that not everyone loves. We like Infinite Granite a hell of a lot, and New Bermuda is a fantastically underrated record. But this is them kind of returning to a level of consistency and scope that people are more used to, and delivering it with writing that feels like it's come a very long way since Sunbather. These are more mature performers and writers. But Only Dust Remains, on the other hand, is... oh god, it's an album that feels like it may even be the most personal album Backwash has put out, which is no small feat considering how personal every single one of her records ends up being. I'm leaning towards Backwash personally, because for as much as I love Lonely People with Power, for as great of a record as I think it is, sonically speaking, I don't think it's doing enough new things for Death Heaven. They're the albums that some people like less, like Ordinary Corrupt Human Love and Infinite Granite. They are more out there. They take more risks and they pay a lot of dividends. I feel like you could still make the argument that Only Dust Remains is not only one of Backwash's most unique sounding records, it's maybe her most unified altogether, and feels like there's lots of personal shit on both of these records, but I felt more of an emotional tug from Only Dust Remains.
I feel pretty much the same way. I connected way more with Only Dust Remains than Death Heaven, so I'm happy to give Backwash the leg up on this one.
All right. Backwash takes it. Those are both mine. So we're moving on to the next round. The last round where we can use our vetoes. So, Snipe Hunter versus the BPM.
Here's the thing.
Veto. I'm giving it to Sedan Archives. I love Snipe Hunter. I think it's great. I think it's Tyler's best work. And the Rick Rubin production on there legitimately sounds fucking fantastic. The only thing I really need to say here is she's beautiful. She just ain't know the BPM. That's
all right. That's your call. That's the veto. That's what you want.
Dub for Jake. And now... Wow. Literally most popular, least popular, like most mass appeal album, least mass appeal album right here.
A real geek charming situation happening.
And I've used my veto, but I definitely think I'm leaning more towards Quad here, but I'm willing to hear you out if you disagree.
No, I don't disagree. I'm ready to lean this towards Quadica just because, I mean, yeah, what I said about Man's Best Friend still rings true, but everything I said about it being a, unique turn that tells me that something different is happening in the space, I would say that doubly more for Quadica, so I'm absolutely willing to hand this the win.
All right. Vanisher takes it. Now...
Jid and Jane.
Like Ugly and Jane Remover. Oh, man. Huh.
Very similar albums in many ways as far as reclaiming the artistic ethos is concerned. Like, the final tracks of these two albums are very comparable to each other, and that they kind of take a moment to get very meta. And, Jane on the last track on here is talking about this relationship that she almost like left music to go be with this person and live the life that they wanted to live. And then Jid kind of going in the opposite direction and saying, pouring one out for the fans as a way to kind of reclaim ownership over the enjoyment of his own work and his own labor that he puts into this music thing.
Both of these albums represent a very similar personal narratives.
Yeah, both of these represent a very similar ethos for me in terms of my own attempts at creative work as well. And so I don't know, I'm at a difficult impasse here. But if you really just like put them in front of me and made me choose like this, it's slightly in Jane's favor.
I think I have to co-sign that. I
just think Revenge Seekers is a little bit more consistent. It's a little bit more concise, and it's got just a little bit more of those unforgettable moments for me that have really defined my year. It's tough.
I couldn't have said it better myself, frankly. I think you're right. We got to give it to Jane.
Yeah.
Which means last on this. Oh, man.
No! Man. Look at what we're doing to our beautiful queens.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
So Lux is the one that I listened to the most recently. to prep for this video. I only listened to it for the first time like this week, whereas Backwash came out toward the beginning of the year, and Backwash has really stuck with me. And I think that this Rosalia album is really going to stick with me too. Oh man, this is tough.
These are two tippy top albums for me. I think if I'm gonna pick between the two, in good faith, I think that I'm gonna give it to Rosalia, personally. Because for as great as Only Dust Remains is, and how I think it's completely arguable that that is Backwash's best album, competing with maybe only one or two other releases, there's nothing on Only Dust Remains that is like, oh wow, I didn't anticipate Backwash doing something like this. Rosalia just kind of brought something completely different to the table, and I have a little bit more of an affinity towards all of the strangeness and the oddities that are contained within that album. Like, these are two records that I think they're two of the best written albums on this entire list, for starters, and they both kind of talk about really strange relationships with the divine. And yeah, these albums are actually quite comparable when I break them down thematically, but this is literal by millimeters of where the needle is moving. I think I do have to come down with Rosalia.
I think I'm with you, honestly. Like, I want Lux to really grow on me a whole lot more, and I'm anticipating that it will. So.
It has with me, honestly. Like, it's one of the best art pop albums I've heard in the last few years. It's just such an immediately captivating set of ideas that also just leans enough on the fundamentals to still have the appeal of a pop album. Those vocal performances on here, Rosalia is doing vocal runs that nobody's capable of. Just fucking nobody. So for as much as I love Backwash, as much as I love this album, I think that Rosalia wins it in spirit. Which means...
All right, so we are done with vetoes. We are just going to have to fight the rest of these out.
It is the semifinals, and we have... the BPM versus Vanisher.
So...
These are... Full disclosure, I have given both of these albums perfect scores.
All right. So for me, what brings the BPM just a notch above Vanisher, for me, is... I really do think it comes down to that kind of forward momentum that the BPM has that carries you through the whole length of this album, whereas Vanisher, it's a lot more parabolic in its structure, and it's obviously trying to do something very different with that structure. But if there's one thing that I've appreciated about my like tippy top albums this year, it's their ability to kind of keep that inertia from song to song, no matter how dynamic it is, whether the songs sound similar to each other or whether they don't. If you can keep that inertia going from the start of the album to the end of it, that's more where my heart has been this year. And I think in that respect, I have to hand it to the BPM, just in terms of an album that if I sit down and start listening to the BPM, I don't stop until I finish it. And I can't say the same for some moments on Vanisher where I'm just like, oh, I need to take a walk.
It is very much the polar opposites of you can throw one on whenever and you got to be in a specific mood to throw on the other. And I'm neck and neck with these. I truly don't know which one I would truly put over the other. But since you're leaning towards the BPM, I kind of feel like I am too. I love Vanisher so much for being the unique experience that it was, in many ways more of a personal record for me, but I am kind of still just in awe of the sonic palette of the BPM, of that forward momentum that you talked about, the flow. It's an album where, because of its qualities as a record, how it's structured and with that momentum, that's why a song like Miss Pac-Man, which is batshit fucking crazy, doesn't feel out of place because it's so perfectly sequenced. That was a really bad single choice, by the way. Like, I really like that song. It's really dumb. I love it, though, but, like, why did
that's why people were picking up. I was reading some Rate Your Music reviews of that album, and they were all like, not all of them, but I saw several, like, what's the deal with Miss Pac-Man? And, like, I don't know. What's your deal with Miss Pac-Man?
And you are so right for that. This is the sticky chromacopia dilemma, once again, of people just being like, I'm sorry, But when an artist is just like, I'm gonna be a little goofy with it, I love that shit. And you know what?
That's how I felt about the Little Sims leading off with Young and everybody just being like, Sims, what are you doing? And I'm like, I see you.
We see the vision. All right, I think we got to give it to Sudan Archives then. Congratulations. Final semifinals. Chain Remover and Rosalia. Oof. Two albums that emphatically do scream trans rights. Damn. I like that we're finishing with 2 of my albums and 2 of yours. That's very good. This exercise was definitely we did not lean more heavily towards one or the other. So that's I feel better about our ability to be slightly impartial.
Jane, if Nina Geraci defined like the past couple of months, Chain Remover was my soundtrack before that, where there was a period of several weeks where every day I was listening to this record. It's easily, probably behind Clips, the album that I've listened to the most front to back all year. And what I think that says to me about myself is, I mean, I've already talked about a lot on the show, this arc, how much I've found a strange emotional kinship with some great EDM this year, a thing that I never expected would happen for me, but just a way that the listening process took me. But Revenge Seekers is the album that really got me motivated to do all of this. This is the album that we started our show with. It's true. Special to me in that way.
And you know, these are 2 albums that, again, my value judgment on them is that I give both like a sturdy ass 9 out of 10. So like this is a real fucking like neck and neck kind of thing. I'm not sure which one I would put over the other, frankly. It would be, you know, different on the day you're asking me, I suppose. But because there is kind of an inherent connection that we have to Chain Remover, and how much that album got me on Chain Remover's team as someone who listened to their last record and was like, I don't really think this is for me, and how hard she ended up winning me over with it. I could tell you that Lux is the better album, but there's a thing with Revenge Seekers where, like, if I put on that album, that's the album that goes by the quickest for me. Like, it was the easiest album to listen to of anything we reviewed all year. It was one I was, like, readily super stoked to come back to for repeat listens. So you know what? I think that Chain Remover should take the victory here. Which means it's Sudan Archives versus Chain Remover, the 2, in my opinion at least, the 2 best dance albums of the year.
Ooh.
Okay.
Where do we start?
Here's my argument. Chain Remover's Revenge Seekers and Sudan Archives both have that forward momentum that we talked about. Like, these are 2 of the albums that are the easiest to listen to on this whole list. And it's because, for as much, like, risks as both of them do take, they never lose sight of the album structure, the album format. There's still tight enough of a grip, but there's enough experimentation to kind of keep you guessing with them. And for as much as I think that Chain Remover doing this kind of makes it feel like this is sort of a real moment for EDM as a movement, where it kind of feels like a lot of tropes of the genre are resurfacing from the 2010s and kind of being reclaimed and transformed. As EDM for years was kind of a fucking joke. EDM for years was the Chainsmokers. It was the early Halsey stuff. Yeah, it was the dubstep adjacent stuff. And it had a really bad reputation. And I feel like now that the alternative sphere has grabbed onto it, it's being transformed into this new movement that has a bit more respectability, but a bit more thought in its construction. That said, Revenge Seekers represents the moment to me, but the BPM represents the future. This is an album that I feel like people need to learn from. I think people need to take notes from Sudan Archives. And for as much as I love how fucking insane Revenge Seekers can get, and how kind of hazy and weird it is, but how, you know, the flows are still kind of on point. I really like the lyricism a lot. something about the experience of the BPM just kind of feels a little bit more full to me. It feels like it's more transportative, and it also does have my song of the year. Dead, in my opinion, it didn't get better than that for me this year. So I think I'm coming down on the side of the BPM for this.
I love the way you put that, and now that I'm hearing it, I completely agree. Like, Revenge Seekers, yes, wonderful album. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. But I wouldn't ask anybody to make their Revenge Seekers. I would ask somebody to go look at the BPM and figure out what is your version of that? What brings that out of you in terms of what art you're making? Give me that. I want that energy. And I think is a great way to call this our album of the year.
It does embody the principle kind of we've been talking about consistently throughout doing this little exercise, and that is the idea of kind of throwing people for a loop based on expectations. Like Natural Brown Prom Queen was this really on arrival, super well received by a ton of people, best new music from Pitchfork, this insanely cohesive collage of really awesome sort of genres that not everybody is brave enough to smash together with as instrumental acumen at Sudan Archive's disposal. There is nothing I feel like that has made me more excited for what this music all means than the BPM has. It is the Kid A to Natural Brown Prom Queen's OK Computer. And as a result, I think that when you're able to balance pop appeal with genuine artistic riskiness, and you make those two things meet in a substantial way, to me, that means you should win Album of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, if you can sell people on the weird house influences, there's like potential hits on the BPM. Like this band could have gone mainstream with a couple of these if they had like made their way in through the system. And I think that's a really good thing. Like I don't think that's a bad quality that this album possesses. I'm thinking about like A Bug's Life. That should be on everywhere all the time.
Oh man, that's one of those songs where like whenever it popped up on the next track list, I was like, "Ooh, yay!" And like that's the thing. That's like half of the songs on this fucking album is that when when the track changes, you're just like, yes, like, yeah. So you know what, and it is kind of that, like we talked about this earlier with McKinley, in that the Jane Remover album here, that's way more of a holistic thing. It's hard to pick out a single song from Revenge Seekers and be like, yeah, that one. Whereas I feel like the BPM is both cohesive and also I can blast my type in the car and just be like, fuck yeah, buy rights, motherfuckers. So let's go. Sudan Archives is the album of the year, and that means that collectively, the amount of W's we've got here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we've got
1, 2, 3,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have taken the Battle Royale by 1 point. That was neck and neck. I was worried that this would be a wash if one of us favored more than the other, but we really traded back and forth on that one.
This was really fun. I love getting to do this kind of unconventional best list structure, but let's go ahead and rattle off our individual top 10 lists just so people have something else to compare to. So my number 10 was Backwash, Only Dust Remains. And my number 9, I had Nina Geraci, I Love My Computer. 8 is going to Rosalia for Lux. 7 is going to Clips for Let God Sort 'Em Out. 6, Tyler Childers, Snipe Hunter, get just shy of the top 5, but oh man, a great ass top 5 if I do say so myself. All right, number 5. Sedan Archives at the BPM is my number 5. My number 4 is JID, God Does Like Ugly. My number 3 is Jane Removers, Revenge Seekers. My runner-up is Perverts by Ethel Cain. And my gold medal, my gold standard is McKinley Dixon's Magic Alive.
Hell yeah. This really is the best of both worlds, because it was so difficult for me to be like, I love my top 3 of this year so much, but like it's difficult to give it to one of them, just one of them. But this way, I kind of feel like I get to have my cake and eat it too. But my top 10, I've got 2 albums here that we did not jointly discuss. So there are 2 entries that are going to sound a bit alien, I guess. But my number 10 is Luminescent Creatures by Ichiko Aoba. one of my absolute favorite modern working artists who always comes out with this great combination of folk and neo-folk and ambient music. And this is just another fantastic entry in her absolutely peerless discography. 9 is Rosalia with Lux, That Could Climb, for the record. 8, I have Sinister Grift by Panda Bear of Animal Collective. This is the best solo work anyone in Animal Collective has put out since Panda Bear dropped Person Pitch. And frankly, it might even be a little bit better than that. If you got really, really sad like I did this year because Brian Wilson died, go and listen to Sinister Grift because his spirit is clearly quite alive in an album like that. 7, Jane Remover, Revenge Seekers. 6, Ethel Cain, Willoughby Tucker, I'll Always Love You. 5, Backwash, Only Dust Remains. 4, Death Heaven, Lonely People with Power. 3, Sudan Archives, The BPM. 2, Quatica, Vanisher. And number 1, McKinley Dixon, Magic Alive. So our dual kind of representatives of like our joint lists, we get McKinley as a victory, but spiritually, the channel album of the year goes to Sudan Archives. Now that we know what we're doing a little bit with this format, I very much look forward to doing it again in a year. This will
I can't
be
wait
fun.
to see what this looks like next year now that we've like knocked the rust off of the concept a little bit.
Yeah. So everybody, I'm not sure again what order these will come out in, but if you haven't already checked out, or if it's not out yet, we are going to be having a list much like we did at the end of last year where we talk about our favorite things. No limits, no release year limits or anything, just our favorite 10 things that we experienced for the first time this year is either out or will be out soon. And I just wanted to take a moment to tell everybody thank you for sticking with us through 2025. I know that the last 2 years of this channel have been kind of wayward and odd because there has been so little consistency and so much of life getting in the way of things. But I really feel like I found my footing again. I feel so much more stable and creatively energized. Like, I started off this year feeling this unbelievable malaise and just like did not know what I was doing, where I was going, or if I would even keep doing this at all in general. And somehow I managed to do that. And as a result, I think that this is the year where with the stuff that I've made, like I've, taken the reins on editing and planning for the channel again. And it's been awesome. It's been really, really awesome. And I now have way too much to do instead of nothing to do. It's like constantly on my mind. And I like that. That's how I operate. I keep myself busy. But I'll take this moment to also formally announce that, if you're still watching, you're probably a fan. So expect in the coming year the return of the Jams and Tea podcast. Me, Jen, and whoever decides to show up alongside with us. We're going to bring back stuff. We're not sure if it's going to be weekly or bi-weekly, but JJBA is not going anywhere. We're still doing that every other week. And we're also bringing back contemporary music reviews and now stuff. So look forward to that in the coming year because I know I sure as fuck am, and I know Jen is too.
Hell yeah. Excited to be bringing it back.
Bringing it all back home. So until next time, everybody, have a happy holidays, stay safe, and pray to God that 2026 is a better year for everyone than 2025 has been.